Next ball game, it is going to be UMass taking on UConn, 7 o'clock Friday night. Now, UConn is somehow minus 15, totals 40. And I'll tell you what, this is an insanely high number for a team like UConn. They're literally throwing for 110 yards a game. And they arguably have the worst offense in the nation right next to UMass. Now, listen, UMass... This is a really interesting game because both teams are so bad, especially throwing the football. There should be like a prop on total passing yards for both teams. But anyway, one of the things that the UMass Minutemen do well is run the football. They've run for over 1,300 yards this season as a team. Meanwhile, defensively, believe it or not, they're actually limiting their competition to just 205 yards a game through the air. Now, I'm not sure if that's just because other teams are just throwing it so much over the top of their heads, but regardless, Jalen Mackey, he's leading the charge with 58 tackles on the year for UMass. And when it comes to the total, the Minutemen went 5-1 of the under in their last 6. Meanwhile, UConn saw their last 4 straight stay under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward UMass plus 15, keeping this one close, under 40. Next ball game, little ACC action on Friday night. I'm talking about Duke at BC, 7 o'clock East. Duke's minus 9.5 on the road, totals 49. Now, Duke should be able to steamroll these guys. Not only have they covered in 3 out of their last 4, they're also in the top 25 in the nation in running the football. The Blue Devils have scored a staggering 22 touchdowns on the ground. Meanwhile, defensively on the other side of the football, they're limiting their competition to just 22 points a game. Darius Joyner and Shaka Hayward, they've combined for nearly 120 tackles. Now they're facing a BC team who just lost by double digits to UConn this past Saturday. I don't know how that happens. They scored just 3 points against the Huskies. Now they're also one of the worst covering teams in the country. Boston College failed to cover in all of their games this year except for one. And for those who don't know, the Eagles are second to last in the nation in rush yards per game. They cannot run the football. They're gaining only 69 yards a game on the ground. Now, total-wise, Boston College saw their last 3 straight stay under the number. They also scored just 21 total points in those contests. That's combined. Meanwhile, 5 out of Duke's last 8 stayed under the total themselves. I'm going to lean toward Duke, minus 9.5, under 49. All right, next game. Let's go out to the West Coast. I'm talking about Oregon State taking on Washington, 10:30 Eastern start time. The Washington Huskies are minus 4.5, total 60. Now, Washington has one of the most explosive offenses in the country. They're scoring over 40 points a game, and they're also leading the nation in passing yards per contest. Michael Penix has thrown for nearly 3,000 yards already, along with 22 touchdowns. Meanwhile, on the other side of the football, the Huskies also have a top 20 rush defense. They're facing an Oregon State squad who's had their issues slowing down the pass at times. They also failed to cover in 2 out of their last 4 outings. Failures to cover against the likes of Stanford and Utah. Now, when it comes to the total, Oregon State's all 5 out of their last 7 get over the number. Meanwhile, Washington saw all of their games except for 1 get over the total as well. I'm going to lean toward Washington, minus 4.5, over 60.